The latest Regulation F regional has just concluded this past weekend in Knoxville, Tennessee. And of course, guys, we are going to take a look at this in our normal snapshot-based approach. So let's begin. We're going to start off immediately with Toller Webb taking the victory, followed suit by a Raging Bolt getting another victory of the format. And just want to point out, really consistent performance from Toller, not only this weekend, but also coming off, I believe, a top 8 in Charlotte a couple weekends ago as well. So that's just absolutely insane consistency, and with a different team as well. So Toller just said, you know what, I am clearly ready to win this regional, and they just won the regional. Absolutely massive congratulations to them. But first off, we're here for the Pokemon. We're here for the analysis. GHOLDENGO back on top. Raging Bolt getting another victory. Guys, there's a lot to unpack here. We're going to talk about the Raging Bolt first. And this Pokemon has seen so much change in how it's played as the metagame has evolved. And just seeing it go from like that Terra Grass, that setup variant with the Calm Minds, to all of a sudden being this big Terra Fairy, being that Snarl user, being able to sit on the field, take those special hits, hinder off those special attackers. It's just been incredibly strong in the metagame all season long, and seeing it adapt with the meta just shows how good this Pokemon is. It's not that one-trick pony. It's able to adapt as the meta adapts, right? Like earlier on, it was like, oh, I can set this piece up and no one's really ready for it. Now it's, okay, they're ready for the setup. Setup's not as strong, but I'm still going strong with this Assault Vest variant. And it is just a really strong piece. Of course, guys, this one's a little bit closer to my heart here with the Gouging Fire in second. I absolutely am a strong believer in Gouging Fire. This thing is just waiting to win a regional. Unfortunately, it couldn't come through this weekend, but an incredible performance from James as well. I also believe Luca got top 16 with it as well. So coming off a second place, Luca, I believe, got top 16. Guys, unfortunately, the full list of teams is not like public in like a pretty format. We actually only have the top 8 here on Victory Road, but I will list the full list down below for you guys to take a look at, so you guys can have a full look in depth. I will be talking a little bit about the top 16 and beyond, but other than that, probably not too much regardless. So this Victory Road will work in the background for us right now. We got to talk about Len's team in 9th place. Speaking of the fact that we don't have the full top 16 teams or the full list up here pretty yet, I will put that team on the screen for you guys. Tyranitar, Corviknight. Guys, it is crazy that Len is capable of just pulling up to a regional saying Tyranitar, Corviknight, or Tyranitar, Corviknight, Garchomp in this case. He's been running this like almost in the entire format. I haven't seen Len not run this stuff, and it's absolutely insane, the consistency he has with this. And getting a 9th place is nothing to laugh at. Unfortunately, it was a bubble out of Top Cut. I do think we need to fix that. I do think we need to have an all X3 Top Cut. It would only add one more round to the regional, and it would make a performance of 11-3. As you see, 11-3 got 3rd. Actually, someone who went 11-3 ended up winning the regional, right? So having someone go 11-3 bubble is absolutely sadness. Should be fixed, in my opinion. Adding one extra round, right, as like a kind of like a playing in into top 8, I don't think would actually hurt. It would add a little bit of things. It does add some other questions involved, but we're not going to get into that today. But either way, Len's team, incredibly cool. Did want to point it out. And is having a dark type mandatory, guys? I hate to say it, but is having a dark type now mandatory? Not only do we have 4 dark Urshifus in top 8, all the top 8 teams though, every single top 8 team had at least one dark type. Is having a dark type now mandatory? That is something I want to say. I don't think it's mandatory. We see that 15 out of the 16 top 16 teams had a dark type as well. That is absolutely wild when you think about it, right? Like, we don't normally see these typings, or this dominance of a typing that's not a normal, like a fire, water, grass, or a fairy, or a steel, right? Normally you see this kind of stuff with these quote-unquote stronger or the better off typings that it can just do a lot more. Like water is a typing I expect to be saying this about, right? And I can't even say that about water this time around, because it was only on like, okay, we got to talk about Water Pond. We'll get into the Water Ogre Pond in a minute. That's a whole other side story, okay? There is a lot going on with the water type, right? But like, you know what I miss? Back to the dark type point is normally you see this about like, oh, there's a grass type on all these teams. There's a water type on all these teams. You don't get to say this about other typings like poison, dark, fairy, right? You don't get to say it about stuff like that, maybe even a psychic, right? But right now, we are seeing that dark types are insane, and that is because of this Iron Crown Indeedee combination that you don't actually see here. It did not have an amazing result in Knoxville. I almost said Charlotte for a bit, but it did not have an amazing result in Knoxville. People were ready for it. You see the Ting Lu team from Avery as well, right? Just I fully believe people were ready for the Psy Spam stuff, right? And you see that here. They were also ready for Blood Moon. We'll get into Blood Moon in a minute as well. But first off, dark types, are they mandatory? I don't want to say they're mandatory to have, but I think you are definitely hindering yourself if you do not have that dark type. I really do think you're playing this game on hard mode if you're not adding a dark type on your team. Now, normally, I remember saying this back in the day in Regulation E with Tornadus Urshifu, right? Like, if you're not running Tornadus Urshifu in Regulation E, it felt like you were just making yourself work that much harder to try and get success, right? Similar here, I'm wondering if it's starting to look shape that way up with the dark types here, because you're seeing them here. All the top 8, like I said, had that dark type. Are you hindering yourself without using that dark type? That is for you to, that is up in the air, right? Like, I think you are. Personally, myself, I would be putting a dark type on your team. I think it is a very important piece to have at this moment. But you know what? I don't think it's a necessity. I think you can get away without it, but you might be playing hard mode, right? We have to talk about Water Pond. Okay, we have to talk about Water Ogre Pond. This mon had an absolute monster performance at Knoxville. And when I say monster performance, not only do we see it in 6 of the top 8 teams, in fact the top 6 teams, but you also scroll down to the usage charts here, and it not only had 66% usage in day 2, it passed Fluttermane. Fluttermane has been number 1 in usage for so long. And even that one opportunity, I believe Iron Hands did pass it back in the day. It was only by like 0.5% or 1% at most. But Water Ogre Pond just coming out and saying, hey, 66% usage, I am now the best mon in the format, is absolutely wild to me. But it's true, because this mon can just do everything. Okay? This Pokemon does everything that you want it to do. Hey, if someone told me Water Pond paid their taxes, I would believe them, because this mon is doing everything right now. It is offensive when you need it to be offensive. It is defensive when you need it to be defensive. It can redirect to set up your other pieces when you need it to. It can heal its own health back with a Horn Leech if you need it to. It can go crazy offense with a Wood Hammer or a Power Whip. This mon is doing it all right now, and you are seeing it here on full showcase from Knoxville. Couple other things we do need to talk about. Amoonguss, we're talking about redirection, doing it all. Amoonguss, once again, another strong showing. This mon is going nowhere, guys, and we see that here. 3 in the top 8. Really strong performance from Amoonguss once again. We see the Komodo in top 8 as well. We will talk about Avery's team really briefly here. Komodo, Porygon 2, and Ting Lu. Just that defensive core. We saw a couple Spanish players lean towards this core in, I believe it was Liverpool a couple weekends ago as well. So this P2 right now, I did do a video on Porygon 2. I said its time to shine, and Avery showed that here with this core. And it's just a really strong piece right now. The Porygon 2 being able to get that Terra Poison going, Poison offense is very nice. You have the opportunity to do big damage when you want. You can be a little bit of a sitting duck at times, no pun intended. Of course, pun intended, right? But you're able to play that whole slow game with the Amoonguss, the Porygon, the Instant, and you're able to slowly cycle them down, slowly whittle them down, and you're just... yeah, they just can't do enough damage, and you just heal it all back up with your Amoonguss, and then your Amoonguss gets low, you switch it out, you get the Regenerator. That's how this team functions, right? They just can never do enough damage to get through your team. And then you obviously have the Specs Fluttermane and the setup Komodo as well, if you're looking to take advantage of that as well, right? Just you can put offense pressure on the field when you need to, but for the most part, this core is I'm going to cycle around nice and slow, do your damage. I'm going to win damage trades, because even if you're doing 80% to me, I'm going to kill you before you can kill me, and I'm just going to heal all that 80% right back up with a nice little Pollen Puff, right? Team is really cool. Definitely something to consider in team building, making sure that you have answers to these teams that are built for you not being able to break. I don't want to call it stall, because it does have its offensive options, but it's definitely leaning towards that stall type style. It's probably just stall. I'm coping. I'm 100% coping. It's probably just stall. But anyways, keep that on your radar, guys. It is a strong comp that you are going to need to consider when building. We got to talk about Blood Moon. There was only one Blood Moon in top 16. This Pokemon a couple weeks ago was insane everywhere. It was Farigiraf, Blood Moon, get your Trick Room up, Hyper Voice, click your own actual Blood Moon as the move. It was doing so much damage. It was looking unstoppable. And yet the metagame, it doesn't show that here in Knoxville. And I've seen a few tweets as well saying that of people that brought Blood Moon, and they were just saying, I couldn't bring Blood Moon effectively all day. It was just heavily prepped for. Whether that's the Water Pond, being able to hit it super effectively and tear it into Water type. Get that special defense boost, right? Be able to cover that. Maybe GHOLDENGO helps a little bit versus that as well, right? You get the big special attackers coming back into the metagame. Amoonguss is really good versus Blood Moon. You get to put it to sleep if they try to set Trick Room. You also have that Terra Fairy AV Raging Bolt that I was talking about earlier, clicking that Snarl button. And having Snarl on these types of teams is hindering off these Ursalunas, hindering off these Blood Moons. So I'm curious to see how the Blood Moon teams are going to develop moving forward, because it is an incredibly good mod. You are going to see Blood Moon. It is not going to stay gone for long, guys. It is an incredibly strong Pokemon. You are going to see it. It's just going to be a matter of time before someone figures out, okay, well, this is how they're countering it. How do we make sure we cover that, right? How do we have answers to what beats our Blood Moon, and then we can actually use Blood Moon to success again? It's not going anywhere, guys. It did have a fall off this time around, but it's not going anywhere. Did I get everything? I believe I've got most of everything I wanted to talk about. The only thing I really haven't said is GHOLDENGO. GHOLDENGO had obviously won the regional, and I believe there was 2 more in top 16. Just an absolutely crazy showing once again from an incredible Pokemon, right? Like, who would have thought being immune to over 1/3 of the moves in the game was a good thing? But like, yeah, it's a good thing, guys. GHOLDENGO is incredibly strong. Toller, we saw how Toller piloted it on those streams in top 8, and I believe top 4 in finals as well, right? We saw him play that team. We saw him play the GHOLDENGO. We see what it can do. We've seen it perform in previous regulations, and we are seeing it once again now. I have to talk about it. It is a very strong mod. Despite, keep in mind, it won the regional, and every single team in top 8 had a dark type. I'm just going to throw that out there. It won the regional, and every single team in top 8 had a dark type. Just take that in for a second. That's how good this mod is. It doesn't care that there was a dark type on the other side. Yes, the dark types should be breaking GHOLDENGO, but it just doesn't care. It can tear defensively. It can set up nasty plots. It gets big damage off with Make It Rain. It's spread damage. It puts on so much pressure. And if you can set it up properly, it is going to put in amazing amounts of work for you. My brain broke there. I don't know why there was a random pause there. Excuse me. But either way, I think that pretty much covers everything. Once again, just really quickly, we'll go down to the usage stats here, but I'll look more at the day 2 because these are the Pokemon that are actually like converting from day 1, right? Once again, you have Amoonguss converting well, Fluttermane, Ogerpon converting well. These Pokemon are going to convert well. Incineroar, pretty strong as well. Urshifu Single Strike, once again, converting well. Gouging Fire actually converted pretty well as well. Shenpao fell off a little bit from day 1 to day 2, but I wouldn't be too worried about a 4% fall off. That's pretty normal. But overall, this is not too surprising. But what's really surprising, the one thing I want to point out is, once again, this Raging Bolt conversion. 18% usage in day 1, 31% usage in day 2. Raging Bolt had a very strong showing. Farigiraf, once again, though, fell off in day 2. Didn't go anywhere. Still quite around. 90% usage for Farigiraf is still probably where I'd expect it to be. But this Raging Bolt, probably the biggest winner from day 1 to day 2. Actually, you know what? No, Ogerpon was the biggest winner from day 1 to day 2. I take that back. But regardless, you see these types of things, and it's cool to see what Pokemon are just being used from day 1 and what Pokemon are actually converting well going into day 2. Like, where did Lando I come from? It was not on the day 1 graphic, but in day 2, it was here, right? So it's cool to see, and that's kind of how I like looking at these usages, where I like looking at, okay, Fluttermane, there's really nothing to say about Fluttermane anymore, you know, 57 to 61, that's pretty on point. It's going to be hovering around it. We know it's a good mod. But these mods that just have massive jumps or go disappear from day 1 to day 2, or all of a sudden appear before day 1 to day 2, right? That's where you start looking at these things. GHOLDENGO just made its way onto the graphic. Lando I not only made its way onto the graphic, made its way up to 28%, right? So something is going on here. People that are using these teams are using them effectively, and they are getting the results for it. But anyways, that's going to be enough. I'm going to stop rambling about Knoxville right now. Once again, guys, I will link a full list of the teams down below for you guys. I was going to use it for this video. It just didn't look good. I couldn't get a layout that I liked for the background of the video. So once again, I will leave that down below. I will also leave the Victory Road. They will get updated eventually as well. but I wanted to get this video out for you guys as soon as I possibly could. But that's pretty much going to do it. I am going to stop rambling now. If you guys do enjoy these types of videos, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel, and of course, I really do appreciate it. But with that, I'm going to get on out of here. Thank you all so much again for watching, and I'll catch you all in a future video.